Alice accidentally acquires a brass teapot. When John came home, the teapot spat out the banknotes. They understand that as long as they hurt more, they will get more money. Eventually they decided to use the teapot to make money. So they put their hands on the gas stove, and the pain became more and more intense, and the teapot spit out more and more banknotes. John went to the dentist and asked for a tooth extraction without anesthesia, and Alice also came for a hair removal package for her beauty. They went back to the tattoo parlor, and got their names tattooed. Pain brings them a lot of money. John bought a sports car, and Alice bought a luxurious diamond ring. I bought a mansion again, had a carnival at home, and invited friends to the house to have a party. A knock on the door broke the atmosphere of the party. Steve is from the Institute of Research Antiques. Alice shooed Steve away and closed the door. They don't know that someone is watching them in the dark. At night, the two sleeping soundly were awakened suddenly. Two people were found in their home, and they had bagged all the banknotes. Gilad said the teapot was a family heirloom, and the money was his. John went to grab the brass teapot, but was pushed to the ground by Gilad. But Gilad didn't take the brass teapot with him when he left. The next day, Elise's teapot spits out less and less money. So John went to the bar to provoke Arthur. John was about to leave when Alice asked him to put on his backpack. John punched Arthur in the face. Arthur hits back at John, who is beaten badly. Steve finds John again. Steve says the teapot is draining your energy, and if you keep using it, you'll pay dearly. At this time, Alice learned that the teapot would spit out banknotes when someone was injured. Next, they watch a wrestling match with the teapot in their arms. The two walk to the place where other people gave birth and cheered from the sidelines. They make a lot of money again, unaware that the teapot has begun to eat away at their hearts. Alice is driving and sees someone in front of her. They are about to collide. In an emergency, John turned the steering wheel, and after the car stopped, the two started arguing. Suddenly the teapot spits out banknotes. Alice and John are sitting at home, doing everything they can to debunk each other. When Alice mentioned that he stole someone, John couldn't take it anymore, picked up the banknote and threw it at Alice. An angry John came to Chuck's house and wanted to fight Chuck. Chuck knocked John down with an iron head, and the teapot fell to the ground. Chuck picked up the teapot and looked at the bills inside. Chuck seemed to think of something. Alice is obsessed with living a wealthy life. Alice is digging a big hole in the field, ready to do something big. Now Alice is getting more and more outrageous. John went to Steve for help. Steve and John talked about the teapot's past. Generations of waiting for the owner of the teapot to turn in, and finally the owner of the teapot died of greed. The only way to break the seal is to voluntarily give up the teapot, sink the teapot into the bottom of the sea, and seal it forever. John went home and persuaded Alice to give up. John was holding the teapot on the windowsill, but Alice was under the influence of the teapot. John fell from the window, and Alice suddenly felt that John was very important. John wasn't hurt. They want to sell their house and car and live a normal life. At this moment, there was movement in the room, and John hurried downstairs to check. John found the teapot missing downstairs, and John saw Chuck's car driving out. The next day they come to Chuck's house to retrieve the teapot. They found Chuck's house in a mess, banknotes scattered all over the place, and Chuck already knew the secret of the teapot. Then Chuck appeared and pointed the gun at Alice, and John smashed the gun to the ground with a stick. John persuaded Chuck to stop. The teapot would bring him death. After experiencing the power of the teapot, how could Chuck resist the temptation? Just then, Chuck's girlfriend also appeared, threatening them with a gun. At the critical moment, Gilad broke in suddenly, and the two sides attacked with guns. John and Alice hid aside, waiting for nothing to happen before going out to check. The room was full of banknotes, and John and Alice left with the teapot and bags. Steve was waiting at the door, and they gave Steve the teapot. John and Alice donated the banknotes to those in need. Steve went out to sea, throwing the teapot over. The teapot also sank to the bottom of the sea. At the end of the story, John drives, Alice sits in the co-pilot, traveling happily. If you have a teapot, you will have the life you want, but at the expense of your own health and the health of others do you use it.